Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for choosing Across the Fence. I'm Will Michael in this afternoon for Fran Stoddard. You've heard the stories or probably experienced it yourself. You or someone you know has had to act as a family caregiver. As our population ages, the incidence of Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia is rising. And in an already taxed healthcare system, the gap for assistance to care for those with dementias is frequently being filled by a family caregiver. In Vermont, the Alzheimer's Association estimates there are more than 30,000 such caregivers every year in Vermont. And today we'll explore the challenges of being a caregiver, what services are available to support them, and what may be needed to support the family caregiver as rates of dementia continue to climb. So to begin, let me introduce two guests with us this afternoon. Lori McKenna is a licensed clinical social worker. She's part of the memory program team at the University of Vermont Medical Center. And also with us is Allegra Miller. Allegra is among the thousands of Vermonters who are caring for a family member. I want to thank you both for coming in. And Lori, we're going to start with, what does it mean to be a family caregiver? I think there's different understandings or interpretations of when somebody says, I'm a family caregiver. So what does that mean?
So a family caregiver, as you just referenced, that there are about 30,000 in the state of Vermont, I just would like to add to that most people who are caring or have a family member with dementia, most of those folks are staying in their own homes through end of life. And this represents in Vermont about 34 million hours of unpaid care. That's in 2018. Estimated to be worth about $434 million. So it's very significant in Vermont, as Vermont is the fifth oldest state in the nation. One definition that we have of a family carer is as family carers are individuals who provide extraordinary, uncompensated care on a long-term basis in a home care setting. It involves significant amounts of time and energy, requiring the performance of tasks that may be physically, emotionally, socially, or financially demanding. So that's one definition.
Allegra Miller, you know that definition. It must have been coming true as we were seeing and hearing Lori talk about that. You told me before we began the program that you're caring for a husband, and maybe you could just give us a little bit of background of what the issues are medically, or so what's happening in your family.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My husband, 13 years ago, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and Lewy body's dementia. And that has evolved over the last 13 years to different ways of caregiving for him. You need to be responsive all the time to as his body changes and his cognitive abilities continue to change. Bigger things such as when he couldn't drive anymore, or then when he couldn't read anymore, and then when he couldn't write anymore, to now where he can't really put his shoes on anymore. Those kind of how your brain can, I need to do this step, and this step, those kind of have been floating away from him.
So that's the impact on your husband. What about the impact on you now as a carer or caregiver? What's that impact?
It's changed my life. I feel I'm continually learning every day. It's so many different opportunities to be with him, which I'm really grateful for, but there's a lot of other feelings. You feel very vulnerable in many ways. You feel isolated. I'm very fortunate because in many ways this has impacted very positively our family. On extended family, we have 3 children, 2 from his first marriage and 1 that we have together, and they are all fully active in what we're doing together. And I have strong family support too from my own siblings and his siblings, and an incredible community support.
This is a full-time caregiving position, and you've left a job as an educator.
Yes. That's been difficult. I mean, everybody has different ways of defining themselves. You know, I've been a wife and a mother and a friend and a sister, and I really identified a lot in my professional career. I felt really good about where I was professionally, and that's that's been hard. That's been really difficult. I've had some opportunity to do a few adjunct work with a local college, which has been wonderful for me, but we were talking earlier, I ended my career as a principal, and that's a wonderful job. I love being a principal, and that was really hard to stop doing that.
So I would just like to add just a couple of things. One is that people are rarely trained to be family caregivers. It's a job that you have to learn kind of on the ground when running, and you have to be quite willing to adapt and seek out resources. And often part of that process involves considerable grief and loss. And I think, as Allegra was just speaking to, loss of your career. And loss of relationships as you have known them. So important components of being a caregiver.
And you're also sort of maybe anticipating one of my next questions, which was, you've had to become knowledgeable in medical conditions. This is what Lori's talking about, that, it was Theodore Roosevelt who said, people, some are great, others have greatness thrust upon them. You've been thrust into this situation.
Yeah, it's a lot to kind of wade through. I feel lucky that I was an educator for so long, and
I can only imagine that would help.
It does with
also
problem
being
solving.
a mother, being a spouse to begin with, those things help.
I feel that I try to get them out in the community every day, and I think exercise is important, being as social as you can. We're very lucky that we have people who still come over and want to spend time with us in our home. I feel very grateful for that. And you try to have a plan and have that be part of what you do, but you start to become limited with what you can do because of various physical conditions. Part of the time now he's in a wheelchair, part of the time isn't. That's new within the last 3 or 4 months for us. And it depends. Sometimes he needs it and sometimes he doesn't. You have to kind of figure out, because falling, as you know, is it's the real tragedy. So you have to be very careful with that.
I want to underscore for our viewers that, again, this is your very personal story, and thank you, but it's magnified, Lori, 30,000 times across our state. The Millers are not alone.
So yes, thank you. The challenges are vast. They can include stepping out of the workforce prematurely. They can include being an adult child, taking care of an aging parent that suddenly begins to develop dementia. And one's role may begin very minutely, like taking mom or dad grocery shopping, and then helping with laundry, and then assuming bill paying, and then. Oftentimes people are scrambling to understand the resources. What services are there in the community? Where are they? And as a provider, I may refer someone to an agency for what I think may be the proper support for them, and then they won't be financially eligible.
I want to get back to Allegra for just one moment, because she's shared with us a little home video that was taken, I believe, at your home, and there's a bit of a setup here in terms of understanding one of the joys along this journey. So tell us about this little video we're about to see.
Sure. So I was a music teacher for many years, and so I played the piano my whole life. He told me he wanted to learn how to play the piano, that was something he really wanted to do, and I said, okay, we can figure this out. So
you have found a way to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And if I can again just jump in, you've done that by numbering the keys.
Yeah, certain keys, not all of them, just a few. And
I think 5.
Yeah.
And as you play along, you're able to tell him a number.
Right. And I first started out with, this is the problem solving, I first started out using colors, then that stopped working. So then I went to the same color and numbers, and I'm hoping this will stay with us, that we can keep doing this.
Well, we're going to pause and take a look and a listen at this very lovely and touching video. Here we go.
Okay.
again, I want to thank the Miller family for sharing that. We just have less than a minute and a half here left, so part of, I introduced you as part of the team at the memory program at the University of Rhode Island Medical Center. What does that entail, and what services might be available for family caregivers?
So the memory program is a program that was started by Dr. William Pendlebury 20 plus years ago to assess and then provide treatment for memory disordered individuals and their families. And the work that I do is in supporting the families. We know that people who have support from the get-go do better in terms of being a family caregiver and keeping their loved ones at home. Services that are available at the memory program may include one-on-one individual counseling, which can be very helpful. It can involve caregiving support.
And with that, I'm going to jump in because we have a slide that our director can put up for that contact information, and as we're looking for that, what about there's a specific carers program, Allegra, and what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk briefly about the fact that I resisted being called a caregiver for many, many years. I thought I was just helping my husband. So that whole notion that I was a caregiver took me a long time to actually establish that, okay, I really am doing that. And then I found out about the carers program, which is a support group. And once I was resistant to it, I said I'd go once, I might not stay, but I went, and it was the best thing I've ever done. It's a safe place to be vulnerable. You can talk to people that are going through similar circumstances and just let your grief unfold.
And that's a big key, is being able to have companionship and likeness in this.
Absolutely.
We're over time, and I apologize. This is a very rich and important discussion. Thank you both for being with us. And I just need to say that is our program for today. We know you have choices, so thanks for choosing us. I'm Will Michael, inviting you to join us back here each weekday afternoon for another visit Across the Fence.